want people's rights. We want people's rights. We want people's rights. We want people's rights.
We must remain part of Europe. We have become a laughing stock. We are a small island, and I just feel that we need to be part of a bigger whole, basically.
I'm marching because I think we're walking towards the cliff edge, and a people's vote is one of our last chances to stop it.
So, where are you from?
We've come up from Coatbridge today.
I'm from near Cambridge in South Wales. Yeah.
I'm from the Vale of Glamorgan in South Wales.
I'm from Cardiff North, Robina.
I flew across from Sweden last week.
I'm from the Vale of Glamorgan.
I'm from the Vale of Glamorgan, South Wales.
We do the Pontypridd.
Dinas Powys in the Vale. I live in Colwinston in the Vale of Glamorgan, but I'm originally German.
We've come from Cowbridge in South Wales today.
I'm from Llantryston to North Cardiff.
I'm from Peterstone, Cardiff.
Dinas Powys in Wales.
I'm from Cardiff.
Dinas Powys, Vale of Glamorgan.
I'm from Barry in South Wales.
I'm from Bather, near Pontypridd.
We're from Sully in South Wales.
Newport, but live in Cardiff.
I'm from Hawthorne in Pontypridd.
I'm from Europe.
I'm from Penarth.
I'm from Synathan, Vale of Glamorgan.
From Caernarfon in Gwynedd.
I'm from near Aberystwyth, a little village called Pontypridd y Groes.
From Abergavenny, Monmouthshire.
Roath in Cardiff. I've come from the wrong town in South Wales.
From Brackley in Northamptonshire.
I've come from Cardiff this morning.
South Wales, Rhondda Valleys. Why are you marching?
Stop Brexit.
I'm marching today to try and stop Brexit and the damage it's going to do to our country.
Because I want to have the opportunities in my future as the same as the older generations that have already been in the European Union.
Because I think the world is an international place and we've got to play our full part in it. And if we can't even play our part in the European Union, we will be playing a part in the bigger world.
To try and stop Brexit.
So, why are you marching today?
Because I feel extremely agitated about the fact that this system is trying to get us out of the European Union. We are Europe. We are Europeans. We must remain part of Europe. We have become a laughing stock. We are a small island, and I just feel that we need to be part of a bigger whole, basically.
Dwi'n gobeithio heddiw oherwydd dwi'n ddewis i efo Brexit yn digwydd. Dwi'n meddwl bod yn weithiool iawn I Gymru, i'n economi ac I genedlaethau'r dyfodol.
Because I think it's really important that people who believe in democracy actually do something to make sure that we get a more balanced democracy than what we don't seem to have had for the last couple of years.
For lots of different reasons, I'm marching because I fundamentally believe that the UK should be a member of the European Union. We know it's going to be damaging for our economy. I run a small business and that's already suffering, and I absolutely want my children to have the same rights and benefits that I've enjoyed in terms of being able to live and work across the European Union.
Marching today, partly because I'd like to remain in the EU, but mainly for democracy, because it's made me really angry that we're being taken out of the EU in the name of democracy, and yet and being told it's the will of the people, and yet we haven't really been given the chance to vote on the actual reality. So the 2016 referendum was based on lies and misinformation and corruption, as we find out later, and I don't want to live in a democracy that thinks that's a meaningful vote. I want my vote to actually mean something.
I'm marching because I think we should really have a chance to exercise our proper democratic vote.
For so many reasons. to put a stop to Brexit.
Because democracy hasn't got a time limit. I don't think that the constituency of King's Lynn elected Walpole in the early 18th century and then we went, oh well, that's democracy done, let's stop and never have another vote. Time has changed, the world's moved on, we've got more information now than we did 2 years ago, and so to make a decision of this size, I don't think double checking that we're really sure about it would be a bad thing to do.
I'm marching today because I think we need to have another say on where Brexit is going or not going. I think it's been handled incredibly badly, and I don't think it's something that should be forced on the country based on information we had 2 years ago.
I know how much the European Union has done for Wales. In the past, if it hadn't been for the European Union, we'd have gone under. And the investment it's made, ironically, in places like Blaenau Gwent, which voted to leave, are fantastic, and people don't realise that the money came from Europe.
To try and prevent the debacle that is Brexit.
Because I think we've been in the European Union for 40 odd years and it's impossible to extract ourselves from it without damage to our country.
Brexit is one of the biggest catastrophes that have struck this country since the Second World War. I was one of the first generations that have grown up and was born as a European citizen, and my son was 8 months in his mother's womb when Brexit happened. I am devastated my son will not have that opportunity going forward, so I'm marching for him today because he can't.
If you like my mum and dad and I can have the best future possible.
I'm marching, my occupation is a teacher, and I'm here today as a representative for the young people that I teach in school that have asked me to attend today because they're a generation that have had no say at all in their future, and they're worried about their future. They're unable to march today because I work in a special needs school, and as I say, I'm a representative for them today.
Because I think we have a real chance to influence whether we have a second referendum, and I think we need to have that chance in order to be able to vote on what we know now rather than what we thought we knew then.
Because I want to show solidarity with people who believe that this is a disaster for the country, and I want to remain part of the European Union. I work in education, and it's seriously affecting people like myself, jobs, students coming over, the Erasmus project, research grants, bursary scholarships. It's affecting the number of students coming to this country, which is affecting my job and many of my colleagues' jobs and universities, and it's really bad for the country, bad for the future.
I'm on this march because I think that if we leave Europe, Britain is going to be severely damaged. I feel European. I have lived in Europe for a whole year in the past, and I know just how damaging it's going to be if we leave.
Because I detest what Brexit means to a whole generation, particularly our young people who are going to lose out.
I care about democracy in this country. I care about peace in Europe. My brother was born in 1958, and myself are the only two people are the first generation in my family not to have had to fight in a war.
Because I do believe that there's absolutely critical that the British public has a final say on whatever deal is cobbled together, and indeed that there is an option to remain in that vote.
I'm on the march to stand up for young people's futures and people in South Wales, and especially in areas like the valleys.
I'm on this march to protest because we want to have a people's vote on the final deal.
I'm on the march because I want to stop Brexit, and I believe that there should be another vote for the people, particularly if we're heading, as people think, towards a cliff edge Brexit, leaving without a deal. That would be a disaster for Wales and for Britain, and we've got to give the people who voted for Brexit a chance to think again.
I'm on this march because we need to overturn this madness.
And are you representing anybody else here on this march?
I'm representing everybody in the UK who I believe will benefit from remaining.
Well, I'm here with my family, particularly my 2 younger children who are their futures I'm really worried about.
I'm here with my family, my husband and our 2 children, and I'm representing friends and family that can't make it today as well.
I represent myself and most of my wider family, but especially my daughter, whose future I think is absolutely at stake with all of this.
Clearly myself, most of my family, most of my friends, and the people that I don't know who feel strongly about Remain but for whatever reasons can't be here today.
Dwi yma fy hun heddiw, ond dwi yma i godi llais ac i gynrychioli fy mhlant fydd yn rhy ifanc i bleidleisio dros Brexit os i dyfodol nhw sy'n mynd i gael ei effeithio.
Myself, my family and all my friends, most of my friends are Remainers and very concerned about the future of this country.
I've come for myself, but I also watch on behalf of my husband who's looking after my 2 children today, because I think my children will have a much better future if we remain in the EU and if we live in a country that we can say is a true democracy, not one that's pretending to be one.
I represent my family who are here in spirit but can't be here physically. Also my trade union, the University and Colleges Union, who support a second referendum, and a group of Cardiff University staff for Europe.
Well, I'm representing all my family, but especially my dad, who actually originally voted Leave and has been horrified by what's been done in his name, and he would very much like to have the opportunity to change his mind.
Me, my history, I've worked with European projects for the last 20 years, I suppose, and is people don't understand that so much of what they've got comes and has been supported by the European Union, because we're not being very good about publicising their involvement in it.
Well, I represent European citizens.
Well, I'm not representing anybody formally, but of course I'm here as a Plaid Cymru representative at Westminster at the moment, and the argument has to go on beyond party boundaries and beyond the boundaries of Wales. It's a battle for all of us throughout Britain to make sure that we do get some future and we're not consigned to being a marginal country on an offshore island.
I'm not. My children are spread all over the country. I believe that the biggest challenge for Brexit, or one of the biggest challenges of Brexit, is not for my generation. It is for the younger generation. You know, we've made our bed. We now lie on it. I've had huge opportunities to travel all over Europe, work in Europe, without any problems at all, any challenges. And that's a privilege and a pleasure that will be denied my children. And for that makes me extremely angry.
Representing my parents who live in Spain as European Union citizens, but as British expats, and my brother as well, who's also with them.
Everyone across the valleys in the Rhondda who can't be on the march. Yeah.
Lots of friends who can't be here today, and I'm here with Cardiff for Europe.
Let's have a shot of Alice's sign.
Alice's sign!
Is that your sign? Is that your sign, Alice? What's the worst thing about Brexit?
The lies, hatred and bigotry. The bigotry and the hatred that's grown out of it.
In the short term, it's all the financial impact. I think for business, my work, my employment, I think that's going to be hugely damaging. But longer term, it's about the future of our children and their ability to live, love and work in the 28 countries that make up the European Union. Taking those opportunities away, I think, is the biggest shame of the whole thing.
I think that it's already been damaging so many businesses and workplaces in our society that it's just going to keep getting worse, and Britain is going to be so much worse off.
The division, what's happened to the fragmentation of Britain. I've been calling it the disunited kingdom since the vote, basically, and that's how I see it. And I think it's even, whatever happens, I think it's going to take perhaps a generation fix it, but that's what I'm concerned about. That's what I'm concerned about.
It's the loss of respect around the world. I think the rest of the world thinks we've gone completely insane, and the damage to our economy that will last for a generation is just absolutely inexcusable.
I feel that the racism and the way people feel they can speak about foreigners is terrible. I think that it has been allowed to be voiced, and I think that's the worst outcome at the moment. But the economy is also going to suffer enormously.
I just think we'll just end up being a little country in a big world and not able to play our part, and not able to play the part we could play in the wider world in its future, especially with regard to the wider environmental issues and how we might well suddenly become the dirty man of Europe again.
I loathe scapegoating of any kind, whether it's personal or political, and I'm watching our relationship with the European Union being scapegoated for all the ills that have been created within Britain, and in doing so we are smashing hard-won political, economic and social relationships in return for being a poorer, smaller, meaner-minded country, riven with division and hatred. We will be the left behind of Europe.
Fel Brexit yn mynd yn niweidiol iawn i Gymru fel wlad, i'n economi ni o ran slodi plant, o ran ffermwyr ac y busnesau ni, a hefyd y cyfleon mae o'n mynd i gynnig i genedlaethau'r dyfodol.
The worst thing about Brexit, I think, is the fact that we're going to be a poor relation in the world, that we would be tied and desperate for trade, and that actually the systems and the standards and everything that have been put in place over the last so many years are just going to be torn up, and that we won't have the regulation that we need. And the climate is particularly my concern.
I think the bitterness that it has created already and will create even more, especially as Remainers will resent the fact that we've come out in this undemocratic way, and people who voted leave will be disappointed that they haven't actually had what they were promised.
I think that Europe will move forward, and it will do so without us, and we'll just be left behind.
Well, it's bad personally for my family. I'm dual national, German, British, but also I work at the university, and Brexit would be an absolute disaster for UK higher education for many reasons.
Well, so many things. I think the rising up of fascism, for one thing. The Northern Ireland situation or the Irish situation is horrendous. The possibilities for that, and so much more. Climate breakdown as well. I think Britain has not got a good record as far as the climate is concerned, and we rely on being in Europe to do things together and to be kept in line, really. Yeah.
I think it's this divisive nature of it. The fact that it's not just divided Britain sort of internally, but it's dividing us from the rest of Europe at a time when we really should be working together on major global issues.
The big thing about Brexit is it's leading us down a road of a more divisive society, and it's the people who are the poorest who voted for Brexit who are going to get hurt the worst.
I'm marching because I think we're walking towards a cliff edge, and a people's vote is one of our last chances to stop it. I think there are two things. It's letting down the people who have suffered the most from austerity, and it's letting down future generations who have been able to live in the long, peaceful summer that we've known that's been so untypical of Europe. And I think the second thing is that it has weakened this country. it's weakened us permanently. Even if we all woke up from this bad dream tomorrow, we're in a weaker place as a country and as a society than we have been in my whole lifetime, and I think that's tragic.
The way it's divided the country, the lies of the politicians, the people who didn't tell the truth at the beginning and are still not telling the truth.
The unnecessary division of our country. People say it's the will of the people. It was the will of the people 2.5 years ago. We know that demographic change means that right now Britain is a Remain country, and yet in a democracy we should have the right to change our mind. The way that Brexit is currently going is borderline fascist, that we are being denied the opportunity to change our mind. As I said, my son is being stripped of his European citizenship. I grew up as a European citizen. I travelled around Europe, I studied in Europe, I loved in Europe. My son will be denied that, and that is heartbreaking.
I think the worst thing about Brexit is that the potential is that we'll become socially, economically, politically isolated from the rest of Europe, and I'm really worried about right-wing politics taking over within the UK.
Yes, it was missold, and it's there's so many things. I don't know where to start really, but anyway, it's not good for us, for the future, and for the education, the field of education, the teaching professionals, and for business, for many things. So I just want us to remain in Europe, in the European community, and to stand together. I think we'll be weaker separate away from Europe, and I feel that it's not going to be good for Britain, and I just want to show solidarity and remain in Europe.
I think the fact that it's going to make us more isolated from some of our closest allies, really, in Europe, as well as the sort of, the social, economic impact, and the fact that my children are not going to be able to work and study freely in Europe as I did when I was that age.
The fact that barriers are being built unnecessarily. We remember why Europe was created, the European Union was created after the Second World War, to prevent ever again the tragedies that we had in the 20th century when Europe tore itself apart and up to 40 million people were killed. We've got to make sure that never happens again, and we're moving in the wrong direction with Brexit.
What's the worst thing about Brexit?
Racism, xenophobia, othering of other people.
I think we will lose a huge amount of expertise, of culture that we currently have, and that's all going to disappear, which I think is a huge, huge shame.
It's so unnecessary. It doesn't do anything it's supposed to do. It doesn't give back control. It takes away control from us. We'll be following EU rules without being able to influence them in our trade, because it's the biggest market in the world, right next to us, 23 miles across a short set of sea. So pointless.
Losing freedom of movement, the economy nosediving.
So many difficult things about Brexit, but the worst thing is just losing the freedom of movement, losing the ability to go and work and live in other countries. Particularly, I think it's unfair to do that to the young people who haven't had that chance. And losing our European citizenship as well, because I was born with it, and it's now been taken away from me.
Grab a shot of your balloons. If you pardon the expression.
Give me now balls.
Where have you come from? Lincoln. Yeah. Lovely. Wales. From Cardiff. Yeah. Today.
It's just to get Brexit supporting bullies to listen and realise we don't have to carry on this path. Just if we started with it, we can stop it.
It's damaging our economies, and we don't get the future, and it's not what they've promised us.
Lee, what's the worst thing about Brexit?
What's the best thing? Is there even a good thing?